If you need badges or want to buy or sell an account, hit up Goat Plugged with the link in the comment section and the description. And just like that, ladies and gents, it is all over. We are not only at the end of this console generation with the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, but we are at the end of iterations of NBA 2K on these platforms as well. If you've been living under a rock or you just had school and absolutely nobody told you, the PlayStation 5 was confirmed this morning. It is no longer a rumor. If you follow me, you know I've long suspected it. With 2K20's Ratchet launch and some of the things that they kept the same, I just really had this sneaking suspicion that a lot of their resources were going to NBA 2K21 on the next gen, and it didn't really take much math and thought to be right on this, but yeah, I was right. And I am so happy, man. I am so happy. I literally just put out the tweet the other day saying how disappointed I was going to be if we had to play another 2K on this hardware. But I'm gonna go in on that angle on my podcast on Friday, well actually Saturday morning, so be on the lookout for that. It is called the Domcast if you don't listen to it. What I want to talk about in today's video is what we might be able to expect with NBA 2K21 with the details that we have about the console now, because there were some pretty thick articles released about things like the controller and the interface of the console and the hardware, just a little bit, right? Just details right now. But from these details and knowing what I know about 2K, it's made me excited for the possibilities. One of the things that 2K always gets right, and they get it very right, is that jump from console to console. So when you look at NBA 2K7 on the PS3, you look at 2K14 on the PS4, and hell, if you just look at the games like through that life cycle, so all the 2K since 2K14, and you compare them to the ones on PS3. 2K sports games, basketball games, they really do the best job in taking advantage of next-gen hardware as opposed to where they were in the generation before. So obviously I cannot speak to 2K's after 2K21 because we all know how this generation of consoles went, but at least for 2K21 I am hyped. And that comes from two features within the PlayStation 5. The first one is ray tracing, which is going to be a hardware feature, so that's pretty significant. I will dive into that just in case you pay no attention to tech. And then there was an article that came out and said that the PlayStation 5 is supposedly supposed to be the biggest computing jump in console generations ever. So a bigger computing jump than we had from PS4 or from PS3 to PS4. If true, there's going to be a lot for games and specifically NBA 2K to take advantage of. There's a lot of room for improvement, and that's saying a lot after a release of 2K14. You remember when that first came out and just how much of a jump that was from NBA 2K13 in every aspect, not even just the graphics. If we can expect a jump like that from where we are right now, we're going to be in a different universe, kind of like we were with the PS3 to the PS4. So first of all, the role that ray tracing can play in a 2K game. Look, let me just make this really simple for you, okay? Why does everyone look back at NBA 2K14 and say, is this still the greatest looking game on, or the greatest looking 2K game on the PlayStation 4? It's because the lighting. If you actually look at the players and you look at the faces and the bodies, those have improved a lot since NBA 2K14. But when you actually just, let's say I have two screens and I have 2K20 on one side and I have 2K14 on the other, 2K14 will stick out more because of the lighting, the court, the way the players are lit. It has a better look to it, even though when you go into the replay editor and you go close up, then you'll see that the players are actually better today. Well, with ray tracing being brought to consoles, which is something a lot of people didn't even think would happen in any kind of affordable way, it's basically able to handle light and make it behave the way it does in real life. So you guys have all seen Pixar movies here, right? And those have looked good forever. Those have for some reason always been above video games, and especially nowadays, and you look at the lighting effects, yeah, ray tracing is very big in film, in those type of films, and that's the reason they look the way they do. Now, I'm not saying every video game on the PlayStation 5 is about to come out looking like that, but when you talk about them being able to use the same type of techniques that they do in those movies, there's going to be a lot to take advantage of, specifically for NBA 2K, where lighting is everything. As far as the look of the game, it's gonna affect the way the court looks, it's gonna affect the way the players look and the sweat, just every single thing about the way the game looks. If they can do this right, we are going to see a pretty sizable jump in graphics, which is something that we really have not had this console generation. After NBA 2K14, like I said, the actual look of the game really did not improve that much. Unless you go on blacktop. You remember before they gave us this stupid ass, the blacktop we have now where it's like outside on a nighttime court? Yeah, before that, when they were out on blacktop, you would actually see, because of the way the lighting was, the game always looked superior on blacktop than it did inside the court and inside the game. So 2K showed that they had a crazy understanding of lighting in NBA 2K14, and if they are able to take advantage of ray tracing on the PlayStation 5, and I'm assuming this is going to be a part of Xbox because they're not just going to, fall behind by not having that type of hardware, visually NBA 2K21 is going to be out of this world. But it's not just the ray tracing, it's the way that the PlayStation 5 is right now, as we know, going to be retrieving data. So right now on the PlayStation 4s, we have hard drives that spin. So you guys have all seen a hard drive, and then there's like a little CD looking thing in there, and then there's a needle. That's what the console is using to read the data. Well, here's something I didn't know. I've read all about it this morning, and one of the reasons games are so big in this generation is because being on the hard drive, what devs do is they duplicate a lot of files inside the game so that you're not basically just stuck at loading screens, or I would also guess so things aren't always popping in on screen, because the needle on the hard drive has to actually search for certain files, right? And so by game devs duplicating files, it makes it easier for them to find, and therefore you have less loading time. That's the simple part. That's what it boils down to. Well, the PlayStation 5 is actually going to be using a solid state drive. Solid state drives work faster. They don't work the same way a hard drive works, where it has to retrieve data with a needle. Therefore, devs are not going to have to do as much to get the same effects. They're not going to have to duplicate a ton of files and take up a bunch of space and make the game a lot bigger than it would originally need to be. And that's why you already have seen one of the things that we've seen as like a tech demo with the PlayStation 5 is how fast Spider-Man loads on the PS5 as opposed to the PS4. So the way this sounds like it works is that developers are actually going to have more space to work with in a game. They're going to have more space to do different things, as opposed to just having to fill that space so that you won't have crazy load times. It sounds like that could be space used for content, or space used for improving features in the game. So we all know 2K's biggest focus is the park. I doubt that it's going to change going into next gen, but I am thinking that for the neighborhood for NBA 2K21, first of all, you have to think it's going to be reimagined because it's new hardware, it's a new console, new methods used. I really think we are going to see that mode. We're going to see an explosion in things that we can actually do in that mode. I don't see that mode being ditched. Even though it is a new console generation, I highly doubt they're just going to thrash it, because by now, a core part of the way people play is using their my players and going and playing against other people's my players. That is one of the more popular things, so rather than just completely changing that for something different, I expect to see it expanded upon in a massive way. And I'm talking about things like your penthouse, things for your player to be able to do. But that is all for 2K to play with, because at the end of the day, I've always thought to myself, how long is it going to be before they give us actual cars, right? Because when the neighborhood first came out, first thing everyone did was like, oh, we got GTA in 2K now. But realistically, like, the core thing they want in the neighborhood is people playing basketball. It's one of the reasons they shrunk or completely changed the layout of the neighborhood from 18 to 19. Because in 18 people stopped playing, people didn't like having to walk all the way or just having everything in separate places, right? You remember 18's neighborhood where you start in a certain area and the courts were like all the way in the back. So I don't really know if they're gonna give us like an entire world to roam around. I think that would be kind of counterproductive. Courts would probably be kind of dead. But something like multiple neighborhoods, something including fast travel, I don't know, I'm just thinking bigger with these consoles. Whatever we have right now, bigger in a way that does not make it so people are so busy doing other things that they're not actually playing on the courts. Look, I don't know, all I'm saying is that the neighborhood is a pretty big thing now, and with the new power they're gonna have next year, expect that to be a focal point. And finally, as far as what the hardware will be doing for this game, a big focus of today's review of the PS5 was the new controller and haptic feedback. So the articles I read did a really good job trying to draw the line between what we have right now, which is just a rumble and everything feels the same, the controller just vibrates, and actual haptic feedback, which is the big focus of these PlayStation 5 controllers. And to make it really simple for you, they're saying you're going to be able to tell the difference when you're walking through like snow in Red Dead as opposed to when you're walking through something like mud. That's the idea of haptic feedback. The triggers, the devs are going to be able to mess with the sensitivity of the triggers, so something like if you're pulling back a bow and arrow, the haptic feedback will do something to make it, make that a really immersive experience and not just rumble. That's the biggest thing I'm trying to get at here. Specifically because if you look at how NBA 2K uses rumble right now, if you have an Xbox One thing I found really annoying, and I'm pretty sure you can turn it off, but I played 2K on the Xbox for the first time, and every time the ball dribbles, you feel a vibration. and it's just a really repetitive vibration. 2K is not an open world game, but I'm assuming since the controller is such a big part of this next gen experience, I think they're going to want to incorporate that, especially because this is a simulation basketball game. I'm assuming they're going to want to incorporate haptic feedback in here somehow, because a basketball goes in your hands. So they might have a lot of things they can play with right there in terms of dribbling, taking a charge when you're fouled. I'm not saying like you're actually gonna feel like you just got knocked the fuck out on the court or anything, but with this controller and with the sport of basketball, there is definitely some things they can do there to make it feel more immersive. Like say you're playing My Player and somebody passes you the ball, so with haptic feedback they'll probably be able to do something to make it feel like you just caught the ball, to the extent that they can actually do it with haptic feedback. You're not gonna feel a large ass round circle in your hand. But with the sports game, yes, haptic feedback, there's a lot you're gonna be able to do there. And yeah, basically I reached out to somebody who really does this side of YouTube and studies gaming and consoles and all that, and before the PS5 was even announced just a couple of days ago, I feel like the universe heard me. I literally just asked him on Sunday what he thought the chances of the PlayStation 5 coming out were and what he thought it was gonna be like. Because as far as 2K, I'm just ready for something new, and my main question was with graphics, cause I was like, with a game like Red Dead and Detroit Become Human, they look so good now, how much better can they be? And he was like, yeah, no, they can always be better, which we know to be true. We always feel like we have the best and then something comes and blows it out of the water. And for 2K, he was like, you'll see most difference in things like physics, crowd quality. Crowd quality is big because it's always the last thing that 2K focuses on. Nobody really cares that much about the crowd in the game. I mean, we do. It's part of basketball, so that environment, that's important, but in terms of divvying up your processing power, it's the last thing. So with this computing jump, you can bet we're going to see different variations in the crowd. The crowd is going to look better. I don't think we're going to see jerseys with no numbers or names on them anymore, the ones that just say Celtics on them and don't have anything else. I mean, hell, on the PlayStation 4, you got people using their phones in the crowd now and taking selfies during timeouts, so just things you would see in a regular NBA game. I expect even more of that within the crowds of NBA 2K21 and beyond. And physics is a really big deal. Physics in basketball, we already know that is a really big deal. What they can do with animations, that is probably where we will see the biggest change, because let's be real, that is how sports games, that's how basketball games, that's how 2K improves every year. That's what kept them above NBA Live, is the movement of the players. So I assume out of everything in this next generation and for NBA 2K21, I think that will be most important to them, is going as far with that as they can to have the biggest jump that they can from 2K20 to 2K21. Players' mannerisms are probably going to be very refined. The way they fall when they get hit by a pick, the amount of things that can happen when contact is made. Yeah, there is massive improvements that can be made from 20 to 21. As far as the things that happened this console generation and why I was so ready to move on to the PS5, I'll be discussing that in the podcast. That's more of a free-flowing conversation. But for right now, yeah, these are some of the things that I think you should be looking forward to with PlayStation 5 and NBA 2K21 on the PlayStation 5. The visual and physical aspects of this game, which are the most important things in any sports game, should see a monumental jump. So if you want to know more of my thoughts about the PS5 in general, make sure to catch the Domcast on Saturday morning. Just type that into YouTube, you'll find it, you'll find the channel it's on, because I will go more in depth there. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button, comment, and sub, and hit the bell next to the channel name if you want notifications when I drop the next video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.